Coming up on 5 Minute News. US Supreme Court upholds Native American adoption law. Harvard morgue manager charged in scheme to sell stolen body parts. And US East Coast cities warned to draft air quality plans similar to those in the West. It's Friday, June 16. I'm Santa Templeton. The US Supreme Court has ruled Native Americans should continue to have preference in adoption or foster care of Native American children. The 7-2 decision preserves the 1978 Indian Child Welfare Act and rejects a challenge by a white Texas couple who argued the law was a form of racial discrimination. The ruling was a victory for Native American leaders who had argued the law helps to protect traditions and cultures. The lead plaintiffs in the case, Chad and Jennifer Brackeen from Fort Worth, Texas, had argued that the ICWA was racially discriminatory, breaching the US Constitution's guarantee of equal protection. The Navajo Nation had objected to the Brackens' attempt to foster a 4-year-old girl after earlier adopting her older half-brother. In supporting briefs to the Supreme Court, hundreds of tribes argued that the ICWA was in the best interests of the child. They said the law treats Native Americans as a political class rather than a racial group. The ICWA was put in place 45 years ago to address a widely spread practice in the 19th century by the US government and states of taking children from their Native American families in order to assimilate them into white America. President Joe Biden, whose administration defended the law at the High Court, noted that he supported the law 45 years ago when he was a Democratic senator from Delaware. Our nation's painful history looms large over today's decision, Biden said in a statement. In the not-so-distant past, Native children were stolen from the arms of the people who loved them, he added. Vice President Kamala Harris, meanwhile, released a statement supporting the Supreme Court's decision in upholding the Indian Child Welfare Act. She said their administration would continue to fight to protect Native families, children and communities, and to stand with tribal nations in defence of tribal sovereignty. A former morgue manager at Harvard Medical School, his wife and 3 other people have been charged over the theft and sale of human body parts. 55-year-old Cedric Lodge of Goffstown, New Hampshire, stole dissected portions of cadavers that were donated to the school between 2018 and 2023, according to court documents. The body parts were taken without the university's knowledge or permission, federal prosecutors said, adding that Harvard has cooperated with the investigation. Lodge sometimes took the body parts, which included heads, brains, skin and bones, back to his home where he lived with his wife, Denise, and some remains were allegedly sent to buyers by post. He's also accused of allowing customers to come into the morgue to pick what remains they wanted to buy. Bodies donated to Harvard Medical School are used for education, teaching or research purposes. Once they are no longer needed, the cadavers are usually cremated and the ashes returned to the donor's family or buried in a cemetery. In a message posted on the school's website entitled An Abhorrent Betrayal, Deans George Daly and Edward Hundert called the matter morally reprehensible, adding that Lodge was fired on May 6. According to prosecutors, the defendants were part of a nationwide network of people who bought and sold remains stolen from the school and an Arkansas mortuary. US cities like New York are being warned they may need to bring in the sort of wildfire smoke hazard plans that cities in California and elsewhere in the West have adopted. Experts have raised concerns in an era of boundless pollution, driven by the climate crisis that is impervious to decades-old clean air laws. It comes a week after wildfire smoke turned New York City skyline a shade of orange. Eric Adams, New York's mayor, has admitted the city was not primed for the sort of wildfire pollution event more usually seen in California. You want to be as prepared as possible, but there's no planning for an incident like this, he added. In California and elsewhere, there are plans offering advisories to wear masks above certain levels of pollution, trigger interventions to help vulnerable people, such as the elderly, and issue warnings to the public to stay indoors on particularly smoky days. Under standards first set in the 1970 Clear Air Act, wildfire smoke is considered an exceptional event that doesn't count towards a state's attainment of national benchmarks for pollution set by the US Environmental Protection Agency. A study released just this week found that the amount of land burned in California wildfires has increased fivefold since the 1970s, and it's predicted to jump by as much as 50% by 2050.
You can subscribe to 5 Minute News on YouTube with your preferred podcast app. Ask your smart speaker or enable 5 Minute News as your Amazon Alexa flash briefing skill. Subscribe, rate and review online at 5minute.news. 5 Minute News is an Evergreen podcast covering politics, inequality, health and climate, delivering independent, unbiased and essential world news daily.